Welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Yesterday, the National Assembly held a question and answer session for the President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. These question and answer sessions are typically scheduled at least once a quarter, and they serve a very important role because they allow Parliament to be able to hold the President and the executive accountable. And this whole mechanism is provided for by Section 92.2 of the Constitution. During these sessions, members of Parliament ask questions to the President, which are sent in advance in written format, and then they also get an opportunity to ask follow-up questions, right? And these questions are typically about issues of national and international importance. Yesterday, some of the topics that were discussed were wide-ranging, but you could see a pattern. There was the issue of pension funds, their use in infrastructure funding, the issue of Johannesburg in particular, the issue of land and land expropriation. But linked to the land expropriation issue, the big topic of the day was the relationship between the United States of America and South Africa. That came across in various questions, follow-up questions. The questions were linked to the issues of AfriForum, the nature of their trip to America, whether it was unpatriotic, whether it was even more than unpatriotic, the issue of Elon Musk in particular, the issue of the American Growth and Opportunity Act, the US dollar as a currency and the relationship South Africa has with that particular currency, and the strategy going forward, considering that hostilities seem to be emerging between the Trump administration and South Africa as things stand. So it dominated the discussion. The most fiery question on the issue came from Julius Malema. Here's what he asked President Ramaphosa in follow-up to his original question, which was around this issue of Elon Musk and the phone call. Here's what he asked, quite fiery, from Malema.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mr. President, I don't know wittingly or unwittingly, when you were answering the question about our relationship with the USA, not once have you mentioned DERCO or Minister of International Relations. And this is as a result of you having met Elon Musk during the UN General Assembly and knowing very well the views of Elon Musk about South Africa, racist, white supremacist views about South Africa, which led to you meeting him because you thought you were going to clarify those issues. Unrepentant racist became emboldened and then made more bad remarks about South Africa even after meeting you physically. You still saw a need to go outside the diplomatic channels and made a contact with an individual, not using diplomatic relations or mechanism within which we resolve diplomatic disputes as South Africa. Don't you think you individually have emboldened white people to undermine us, and you have single-handedly destroyed the diplomatic relations of South Africa with other countries, and you have destroyed and junior-ized the Department of International Relations? Let's try Mr. President. And Elon Musk. And worse, Elon Musk, you organized a meeting with him or that telephone conversation through his immoral father, politically, economically, and otherwise. A man who has engaged in business in South Africa through illegal means, even when he has admitted to do so. Those are the type of characters you can't speak to. Imagine, Mr. President, had they said Donald Trump called the Guptas during that time. What are we going to say? You're going to say that Guptas are an independent state actor. You're not going to say that. You're going to feel undermined. And that's exactly what you've done. What are you saying about established practices of resolving issues in a diplomatic way and diplomatic channels in South Africa? Do you have a full confidence in the Minister of DERCO and the department itself? You speak about an ambassador in Washington or New York. That ambassador belongs to the Department of International Relations. Instead of talking about international relations, leadership, and the department, you talk about ambassador. But when you talk about TRC, you talk about Minister of Defense is doing 1, 2, 3. You don't say ambassador in TRC is doing 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Honorable President.
So here's some key information that you need to know about this phone call before we can talk about it much further. And here's the timeline that leads to this phone call. On the 23rd of January, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the Expropriation Act into law. It was the Expropriation Bill became the Expropriation Act. 10 days later, on the 2nd of February, Donald Trump went onto social media and attacked South Africa and basically said South Africa was mistreating white South Africans as a result of a variety of things, but also as a result of this Expropriation Act. The very next day, on the Monday, there was a phone call between the president of South Africa and Elon Musk, the world's richest man, owner of Tesla, Starlink, all of these companies, SpaceX, you name it. The phone call occurred on that Monday, the 3rd of February. And the way the phone call happened is what has been subject to scrutiny, because this is what the reporting was from Reuters around this. Reuters reported that Mr. Ramaphosa spoke to Musk in a telephonic conversation arranged by his father, Eroll Musk. And if you've been listening to Eroll Musk, he's been saying a lot of outrageous things about South Africa, the South African government, conditions in South Africa, taxi drivers. It's a lot. You can go and look for some of those interviews. He has been telling big lies with big energy, right? So that phone call was arranged by Eroll Musk. Now, how did Eroll Musk arrange the phone call with Elon? Reuters reported that Benjani Chauke, remember that name, was linked to a variety of things, right? Benjani Chauke, Ramaphosa's former advisor, quote unquote, called Eroll Musk the father of Elon Musk. According to Eroll, he was asked if he could arrange a quick call between Ramaphosa and Elon. So he did that, and then they spoke a few minutes later. Eroll Musk showed Reuters the WhatsApp messages between himself and Benjani Chauke that backed up his version. Chauke did not respond to any questions by Reuters about his role in contacting Eroll Musk. Then 4 days later, the US President Donald Trump issued the executive order, which was titled Addressing Egregious Actions of the Republic of South Africa, which I've spoken about on the channel before, so you can find some videos on it on the channel. So that's the context. Eroll Musk is involved, Benjani Chauke is involved. If you're reading that as a member of parliament or just a member of public who's been following Benjani Chauke, some of the reporting around him, some of the reporting around how the Department of International Relations was not happy with how he was going around the world with Mr. Ramaphosa, meeting all of these high-level people. He was in pictures, etc., etc. If you are a member of parliament, if you are somebody who's been following the story, yeah, you would have some concerns. Here's how President Ramaphosa responded to the question.
Honourable President, please proceed. Yes, please.
I was waiting for you to give me the cue, Deputy Speaker, after that tirade. Now, Honourable Malema, ke kgopela ntho e le nngwe fela. O ska leka go lwantsha president le minister wa gagwe. Bjalo wena o nyaka kena ka mogare. Taba ya go šoma ga ka le minister wa ka a e batle wena. Emela ka thoko. Emela ka thoko ka hobane wa bona ha re le di-meeting tsa rena tsa cabinet kapa difeng kapa a o ye wena. O ba o se gone. Le gore re šomisana bjang. Ka hobane minister o re ha fetsa go etsa dilo tsa gagwe a bolela le batho wa mputsa. Le nna ke fetsa go bolela le batho ke a mmutsa. So wena bjalo o leka go kena hare ha rena nka se dumele ntho engwe le ganyane nka se dumele. So we work in a very interactive way. And as I said to you, there is just no way we can say we don't talk to certain people who are either non-state actors or state actors. The discipline that I have always followed, if you care to know, is to always keep my colleagues informed, and they always keep me informed. Be they ministers or deputy ministers, we always know when we do certain things that have to do with the Republic of South Africa. So ke fella gona mo o ska re lwantsha ke a gopela.
Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Honourable President, it seems that there is a point of order. If you can please just take your seat. Yes, Honourable Member, Honourable
Thank you,
Matwe.
Deputy Speaker. With all due respect, the President did not answer the question. Instead, he went on and on educating us about his relations with the Minister of South Africa. You might have appointed him, but he's serving for the people of South Africa. And when there's something wrong that you are doing, allow your members of parliament to tell you and show you that this is wrong. Because you can't have the department that has been undermined the way you're undermining it. The minister is there for a purpose. He's there to have interactions with the international community, not for you to be engaging with criminals, Mr. President. So please, Deputy Speaker, with due respect, the President did not answer the question. We ask respectfully for the President to answer the question.
Thank you, Honourable Matwe. That is up for the President to decide whether he has answered it. He is the replier to this question. Honourable President, there is another point of order before we proceed. Honourable Manye.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Mine is a different one. I'm just worried about the mics here. You know, when Honorable Malema was speaking, you put your mic on, your lips were moving, but there was no sound. Just now you will say somebody disregarded your ruling. Can you get the IT people to attend to the sound, to the mic issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Manye. Yes, indeed. There is a little bit of a problem with the switch here. I'm quite aware of that, so I am concentrating that it switches on before I speak. Honourable President, please proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. It's a simple answer. In whatever I do not seek to undermine any of the colleagues I work with. Thank you, Honorable Deputy Speaker.
Well, here are my thoughts on this whole exchange. Firstly, Mr. Ramaphosa is a smooth politician. You've been hit by boom, boom, boom. You've been hit by boom, boom, boom. Smooth cupcake. I don't think those are the same song, but you've been hit by a smooth cupcake. I can see why Mr. Ramaphosa is the cupcake. Even Julius Malema forgot that he was a roaring lion for a second. He was there, and now all of a sudden Ramaphosa answers. Julius is laughing, he's eating the cupcake, it's vanilla, it's chocolate, it's all of these things. You know, when Mr. Ramaphosa answers a question, the answers he gives you are a cupcake with that vanilla custard from Woolworths. And if you're not paying attention, you'll eat it all up. But the problem with eating cupcakes all the time is that sugar's not good for you. It's not. That's how people end up with type 2 diabetes. Anyway, he is a smooth politician. You really have to be paying attention when he answers, that he's answered, etc., etc. So on the substance, now let's talk about the substance. Let's forget the cupcake now. Let's go carrots. Let's go eat our broccoli. Let's look at the protein content. Let's make sure that our plate is a balanced diet. So on the first level, I don't think that Ronald Lamola has the relationships, the gravitas, and the charisma and capabilities to be able to deal with this issue of Elon Musk, Donald Trump versus South Africa, right? He doesn't seem to be on the ball with the issue of America in a way that he can be the lead agent, lead role player, lead person who's going to be trusted with dealing with this issue. That's just what it looks like to me. I don't know if you guys disagree or agree with that assessment, but he doesn't look as if he is strong enough to be able to deal with this issue just on the way he's been moving himself. So that's the first thing that I think would be something that's on the radar of the president and on everyone's radar who are trying to mitigate the harms or the risks of this particular issue. So that's number one. Number two, I actually think that the president should use his own office and his relationships with global leaders to try to deal with issues. You can't put aside your personal talent, your skills, your status, your relationships, especially when you're dealing with someone like Donald Trump. You have to play the game. If you look at someone like Emmanuel Macron, if you look at other global leaders, they do actually use their relationships. They do use their brand to try to reach out. You know, Justin Trudeau, who recently stepped down, the former Prime Minister of Canada, everyone plays the game. You have to, at the international stage, lean into your brand. Even if you look at Putin, Putin does use his status, gravitas, reputation to try to push and pull and see what he can do. Whether it was with George Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, he has played that game. So I don't think that it's necessarily true that the president shouldn't have a role to play or shouldn't lean on his own strengths, make phone calls, do whatever he thinks needs to be done, because you have to do that on the international stage. It's not just about your diplomatic team working on stuff. Sometimes a phone call president to president can be more effective than having diplomats speak for weeks or months on end. And oftentimes when we saw the de-escalation of nuclear tensions, that was because Bill Clinton had relationships and conversations with the Russians, and also that George Bush had those relationships and conversations with the Russians. Putin was often in the USA. At some point, he was even in a go-kart with Bush, and they were going somewhere golfing or whatever. So the point I'm making is you have to play the game. You have to play the game. So that's something that is relevant to note. The other thing that's relevant to note from the Trump perspective, Donald Trump respects power. He respects authority. He respects wealth. He wants to be engaged by the right level of player. A minister will have no way of meeting him And even if they were to meet him, they'd have no way of persuading him. Donald Trump listens to billionaires and other presidents, and the presidents he views to be strong. That's why you see he has an affinity and a leaning in to particular presidents. Viktor Orban, if you look at his rhetoric around the Chinese, you will see that he respects Xi Jinping. He does, because he views him as a person with authority who can execute and whose authority is such that he can move fast without necessarily being challenged. Those are the type of things Donald Trump respects. That's why he likes Putin. That's why he likes Bolsonaro and all of these other people. The guy from that South American country who's been very, very strong on dealing with crime. That's the type of person that he wants to deal with. So a person like that needs to be engaged by a person with the right credentials. And President Ramaphosa would be the right person. On the Elon Musk side of it, right? At this stage, Elon is a quasi-state actor in the USA. And he was when President Trump spoke to him. Maybe last year he wasn't necessarily, but that was even before the election results, the election had happened, right? When they had the meeting and they're talking about being bros, etc., etc. That was before Trump became president. Right now, Elon is a quasi-state actor in the USA. He has influenced the cuts of USAID and PEPFAR. He has influenced the Trump executive orders. He actually is in that Department of Government Efficiency, and he goes to cabinet meetings. He is a role player within the state as things stand and within the Trump administration. So whether you're speaking to him or speaking to Elon, is always around Donald Trump at this stage. Donald Trump has been advertising cars for this guy. Their relationship is very strong. So he's a state actor, and it would be legitimate to actually engage him. It's no longer just a matter of a private citizen being spoken to by the president of South Africa. Having said that, in principle, the EFF is right. If Donald Trump had called the Guptas, there would have been a massive outcry in South Africa. In principle, the EFF is right also that this phone call arrangement was not transparent, and the involvement of Benjani Chauke and Eroll Musk in and of themselves are worrying, right? The Benjani Chauke, him still being in the mix now after having been described as the former advisor to the president, etc. And if Benjani Chauke can talk to Eroll Musk and get Elon on the phone, what is the department meant to think about that? That's their purview. That's what they're supposed to be dealing with that. In addition, there's the other phone call we've heard about where Mr. Ramaphosa actually called Donald Trump and congratulated him when he was president-elect. That phone call, as we heard from reports on Biz News, was organized by Johan Rupert. So on one side, Benjani Chauke is organizing phone calls. The other side, Johan Rupert is organizing phone calls. These people are able to get people to meet with Musk or talk to them on the phone, etc. And Donald Trump talk to them on the phone. It's worrying. If you're a member of parliament, if you're a member of a bureaucrat within the Department of International Relations, you would be worried about these type of things. In principle, they are correct that these things are troubling, they're not transparent, and they need to ask questions about that. Right? In fact, I think that any call that is made by a head of state should be recorded, transcribed, and those records should be made available upon request by members of parliament. I don't think, obviously, you can let everyone know. There may be some sensitive calls which may need to be listened to at particular points, etc., and not necessarily by every member of parliament, maybe committee members, etc., and maybe some things need to be classified and sealed. But in general, I think some of the stuff the Americans do themselves, where these records are kept meticulously, that needs to be done. People need to know what are presidents talking about in respect of a country, etc., so that they know that the country is not being sold. Right? And also know what is the demeanor and temperament, and is this guy speaking one way to parliament and speaking another way to Elon Musk? Those things need to be known. I'll give you an example. There was that phone call which was supposed to have happened between President Ramaphosa and Paul Kagame, president of Rwanda. And then when we heard back about the phone call, President Ramaphosa said one thing and Paul Kagame came and said, this guy is lying. That's not what we discussed in the phone call. So now, who do you believe in a situation like that? Which is why I think you need to have those phone calls recorded and that record kept for posterity, right? Having said all of that, right, in principle, I agree with where the EFF is coming from. Having said all of that, the Trump people are transactional. They are unorthodox. Relationships and connections matter more to them. So I don't think my principal approach would work with these people. You have to work outside the box. And sometimes, the person that can get you the phone call is Eroll Musk, the liar. It's not going to be like Pope John Paul. It's going to be Eroll Musk. And he has lied. If you're wondering why I'm calling him a lie, he has lied. He was saying that taxi drivers are killing people and killing... He said a lot. I don't want to deal with everything that he said, but a lot of it was dishonest at some point. Right? So sometimes that's who you've got who can connect you. That's who you've got who can help you with the phone call. But bigger picture, I think the phone calls have failed. Phone calls have failed. 4 days after the phone call, Trump passed the executive order. What is required is a presidential trip. That trip has to go with a deal that Trump will like. Perhaps it's a mineral deal. Maybe you can change the regulations, the CASA regulations from 30% to 10% for a company such as Starlink. Maybe that will get Trump to work with you. I think President Ramaphosa doesn't have time. He's like, we're cooking it up, we're doing this, we're getting advice, etc. Trump moves fast. He's a construction guy. He moves fast. He's a business guy. He wants to move fast. So as you can see, Trump is on 50 days or so now of this presidency, and he has done a lot. It's exhausting when you try to keep track of everything Trump has done. He moves fast. And if President Ramaphosa wants to fix this issue, he can't move slower than AfriForum and DA. He has been beaten to the punch. The other question that he was asked, have we been beaten to the punch? Yes, he has. He has been beaten to the punch. There's no time with Donald Trump. Trump needs to be engaged directly by the right person, and that has to be the president of South Africa. It can't be anyone else. It can't be. The question of who is supposed to be engaging and who represents South Africa in terms of by law and in terms of tradition, it's now moot. It's moot. Yes, the president is the one who's meant to be doing this in law. Yes, this rests with the executive. But other players have already been given platform by Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio. AfriForum was there, DA was there, etc. And you have to be aware, Elon Musk speaks to the president daily and is one of his campaign donors. And, he's the head of government, Department of Efficiency. Trump was advertising cars for him and all of that. There was a promotional advert for Tesla at the White House. That's where things are at this point. So you can't take time now. Rob Hersov and Ennis Roots have already been speaking to conservative media, going to conservative conferences, and their clips have been viewed millions of times. There's no time. There's no time. The president is wrong. They've been beaten to the punch by AfriForum, DA, anybody else they've been beaten to the punch. Now the question is, where does the power lie? Who's supposed to be doing it? It's moot now. It's moot. You have to work with the environment as it is. Of course, in future, you can try to strengthen that, and most times, the Europeans will not just listen to AfriForum, etc., at a leadership level. You won't have the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom meeting up with AfriForum. It will never happen. You will never have these types of stuff happening in many countries. The Chinese will never meet AfriForum, but the Americans have met them now. That's where things are. And, the president has to go to America. I think that's the only way. I understand that President Ramaphosa doesn't want to have a Zelensky moment. And Trump may not even agree to meet with him. But on the other hand, Mr. Ramaphosa is cupcake enough to know how to give Donald Trump the sugar. He knows how to give Donald Trump the sugar. That cupcake with the vanilla from Woolworths. Nobody can give a cupcake with the vanilla from Woolworths like Mr. Ramaphosa. He needs to go there and talk to this guy before it's too late. It's too late. I think the AGOA losses are too big a risk not to try. I know there's this discussion about, no, we'll go over here, we'll talk to Japan, we'll do this other thing, we'll get the Japanese to buy. Look, I don't think that the Japanese are necessarily going to close the gap that the USA or loss of access to USA markets will provide. And they're not going to give preferential deals. So I think this Japan as an answer, or even China will buy more as an answer, is not 100% reflective of where things are. Even Europe right now, they've got to spend more on defense. They're not necessarily going to be able to create the kind of market access that will close the gap of losing America as a customer. But remember, the Americans don't just hit you on the trade side once they decide that they've had enough of you. They can downgrade you, right? They can get those rating agencies to downgrade you. They can make it difficult for you to get out of the gray list, can even get into the blacklist. Right? And then they can start asking where you got the money from the sofa. There's a lot that can happen. So I don't think that there's time, and I don't think that there's room right now to just take it easy and just, go slow, like what sometimes Mr. Ramaphosa likes to do. I think that here he's dealing with organized people, AfriForum, billionaires, Elon Musk, Institute of Race Relations, etc. And whether or not they should have done that is now moot because they have done that. They have been given space to do it. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Did you watch those question and answer sessions with the president yesterday? What do you think? What did you think? Let's have a conversation. By the way, book club video is coming. A video on this VAT issue, the budget is coming. Look out for those. They're going to be on the platform. You got to join the membership to access the members only book club because the dissection book club episodes will be for members only. The way that you do that, you go to the page and you click join. You click join on the page, subscribe, join. And then if you're using a phone, sometimes if you're using an iPhone in particular, you won't see that option because Apple and Google, they don't see eye to eye. And sometimes Apple makes it hard for Google. So you just need to go onto your browser, log onto your YouTube via the browser, request the desktop version. You know, on Apple, you press those three dots, something shows up, request desktop version, but it's very easy to do on your laptop. You shouldn't have problems. So if you're watching a lot on your phone, but you also have a laptop, just go to the laptop. You'll be able to do it from that side. Till the next one. Peace.